Why? Monday the 19th of April, 2010. First day back in school. I'd rather be in school than at home. It's boring at home. I couldn't wait to see He back and tell her about my holiday in the summer. When I told her I was going home to see my grandparents, she went really weird. I asked, "What's wrong?" She said she didn't want to talk about it. I kept asking what was wrong. I asked her again and again. In the end, she said, "They are lying to you, Yasmin, just like they lied to me." She gave me a number, a woman called Sarah Mack something. She won't say any more. All day I'm thinking about it. Why do I have to call a woman I've never heard of? I searched the net for Sarah McCulloch, and 981,594 results come up. I'll have to call her. What does FGM stand for, and what exactly is it?
FGM stands for female genital mutilation, and some people call it female genital cutting or female circumcision. It's not known where it originally comes from, but we've traced it to the 5th century BC, well before religion started. Type 1 is called clitoridectomy. Clitoridectomy means dealing with the clitoris, which is very sensitive part of a woman. It's also called a sunnah in Somalia, Egypt, Eritrea, and Sudan. Involves either pricking, cutting the tip of the clitoris, or removing the whole clitoris, but they do not do anything to the rest of the vagina. They leave it intact. Type 2 is called excision. Excision because they remove the clitoris and they remove the top tissue of the vagina. Some communities, they stitch the top of the vagina, but they leave everything intact, particularly where the vagina is and passing urethra is. Type 3, which is also called pharaonic, is called efibrillation. That involves scraping, total scraping of the external tissue, labia minora, labia majora, which is the lips that make the vagina. They scrape all the tissue out, leaving the skin of the outer vagina, bringing them overlapping and stitching, leaving a tiny opening that you just pass a cotton band through to allow a girl or a woman to pass their fluids, menstrual fluids or urine. And it's very difficult. It has very serious health implications because women find it very hard to pass urine, very hard to have sex, and also giving birth. Type 4 involves putting instruments like rings, corrosive substances, cow dung or sand in the vagina. And in some communities, instead of damaging the clitoris, they actually pull to make it longer. So those are the 4 different types as classified by the World Health Organization. The side effects are lifelong because once you've been done, you've been done. You're not going to try to change it back. If your clitoris has been removed, it cannot be replaced, it cannot be repaired. And if you've been through type 3, where the whole genital area was scraped, there's no tissue left. All is left is scarring. And because it's so scarring and it's tight tissue, it's very hard to have sex, it's very difficult to get pregnant, it's very difficult to pass urine, very difficult to have normal cycle periods, and it's very difficult to give birth. So these are lifelong problems, and even if you go to the doctor and you get treated, the problems will still stay. And the seriousness of it is the flashbacks. Particularly, you've been told that it's your culture, you don't talk about it, you've never discussed it with anybody. Then all of a sudden you get married and you're having all these problems and you don't understand why. And if you talk to your mother or your grandmother, all they'll tell you is you're now a woman. That's part of being a woman, but it's not. Because those women who have not been circumcised do not experience the same problems as those who have been.
Wednesday. I can't believe what I'm hearing. Does this mean that it happened to my friend? No wonder she wouldn't talk to me. I don't want to talk to anyone about it, so I'm writing it down. I need to have a record of this. When I get home, Mum notices my edgy behaviour and asks what's the matter. I try to resist. She knows I'm hiding something. She keeps asking. I keep resisting. She is the last person I want to talk to at the moment. She keeps on, and the words burn in my mouth, begging to spill out. And they do. I blurt it out, all of it. I tell her about Heback and what she said, and Sarah Mack, all the horrible things she told me, and how that makes me feel, and how I can hardly believe it. Hearing this, Mum gets angry and denies it all. She denies everything. I'm shocked at how angry she is. She threatens that if I don't behave, I will not go on the holiday to see my grandparents. I love my aunties and my grandparents very much, but I realise I'm not sure I want to go. Sunday. It's Sunday night, and all weekend I didn't hear from Heback or see her. We always talk or meet at the weekend. I don't want to talk to Mum. I can't. She was so angry. I feel burdened by my knowledge and confused about who I should believe. Normally we'd have made up by now, Mum and me, and Heback and me. We'd never gone so long without talking. I want to go on that holiday. I miss my grandfather and grandmother. Grandmother used to call me Firecracker or Miss Sassy Boots. Big bang and then it's over. That's you, she'd say. I've been looking forward to seeing them. But are they part of this secret, this conspiracy? Yusuf takes no notice. But then he's my brother, and you know what they say. A man will always be a man. I know him, and his leave me alone way with me. It used to be that I could talk to my sister about anything. But Hannah's changed. Mum says it's being a teenager. Anyway, she doesn't seem to want to spend time with me so much now. These days, she spends a lot of time roaming round the house with a confused frown on her face. I want to believe my mum. I want it not to be true. This knowledge is too much to take in. Monday. At school, I saw Heback, and she was still quiet. Still unusual. But then maybe so am I. Anyway, something made her realise I'm different too. Distant. Not talking to people. She came over and stood with me for a bit without saying anything. Then she said, I still can't talk to you about it, but I know how you must feel, and you don't have to leave it here. She said this so calmly that her manner frightened me a little. In response, I claimed that I didn't want to know anymore. I want to give up, even though I know my friend means well. I want to forget about this if it means that I won't be able to see my grandparents. Heback says I must carry on as she doesn't want what happened to her to happen to me. She says I need to see a doctor. I didn't say much, but I knew I wasn't going to. I was scared. I was estranged from my own mother. Tuesday, Heback called me. He said about the doctor again. It was like she knew what I hadn't said about not calling her doctor. She knows me well. She knew I was never going to do it. And she called and called again and kept insisting. I don't call the doctor. My mum does that, I told her. But she just kept saying, call. You can call the doctor yourself. She said she'd keep calling till I did it. Who are you? And what is your job? How does it relate to FGM?
I'm a specialist in women's health, and I mainly see teenagers, teenage girls, young women and adults, not smaller children.
You've said you've seen lots of cases of FGM.
I've seen women who have, maybe they've just got married or they've just started a relationship with someone. They want to be able to have sex and they can't. So they come to see me and we can talk about how we can help with that. Other people might say, no, I'm not ready to be having sex yet, but I'm having problems. I saw someone recently who said, I have problems with my periods. My periods last for days. days and days because the hole is too small for the blood to come out, and that's uncomfortable and stuff. Another woman might say, I have problems, I can't pee properly because of where the FGM has been done, and it's sort of closed, and therefore she can't pee easily.
Does the sooner one, where you just snip it a little bit, does that harm your health as well?
Really, any kind of damaging deliberately in the genital area, around a woman's vagina and around about there, that is harmful, and it's actually illegal. And the reason it's illegal is because there really is no point in it. If you have FGM done and needles or knives or whatever are not clean, you could catch HIV from it, you could catch hepatitis B, which is another sort of quite serious virus infection, or you could catch other sort of germs that can cause harm.
How do women get affected by FGM, psychologically and emotionally?
It's up to the individual woman to say, has it had a bad psychological effect on me or not? And if it hasn't, it's not for somebody else to say, but it must be really dreadful for you. That's for them to say, not for somebody else to say it to them, I think. I've met women who say, I have flashbacks to when I had it done. You know, I remember being held down, or I remember this being so painful and dreadful. I get flashbacks from that. You know, it keeps on playing over in my mind, that kind of thing. You know, that's something where they may get some benefit from perhaps seeing a counsellor to sort of improve how they think about it, how they feel about it. I think it depends, and I think some people think, oh, it must be every woman who's had FGM, there must be bad mental and psychological effects. I don't think there always are, because women are strong.
Thursday. I'm thinking about what the doctor said. Some of it made me think about my sister. She's been moody for so long now and never wants to talk to me. It's like she is a different person. She used to be sunny, and now she's all closed up. And I know I can't talk to Mum, because what if... Did she do that to my sister? How can I ask her? Maybe my dad would know what to do. But first, it's not something I'd talk to him about, is it? And second, he's away anyway. And third, that'd be going behind Mum's back. So I can't talk to anyone at home. And I can't talk to my best friend. Back. She said she can't. I was thinking about stuff today in class and not paying attention. And Miss apparently said something to me that I didn't hear, because the first I knew, everyone was looking at me like I was supposed to be saying something or doing something. Miss said, Yasmin? And I didn't know what to say. Afterwards, she made me stay. I thought she was going to be stern, because that's what she normally does when you don't pay attention. You're a bit quiet, she said. I couldn't look at her. I saw back hovering by the door, and Miss saw her too. She looked at me and said, Whatever it is, Yasmin, you don't have to be on your own with it. I was trying not to cry. She said there were other girls who had questions, and no one to ask. And how did I feel about meeting an imam and going on a trip to London? She said a group of girls was going to meet someone at the Foreign and Commonwealth Office soon, and I could go too if I liked. But my mum, I said. And she said she'd fix it. Wednesday. Today a group of us saw the imam from Oxford. We asked questions. Even I asked a question. Does it say anything in the Quran about harming the body?
We as Muslims, we have to believe in the transcendent text of our faith, which is the Holy Quran, which we believe is the divine word of God revealed to the Prophet Muhammad by the Archangel Gabriel at the express wishes of the divine creator, Allah. So, if the Quran, which is our constitution, which is our book, which is our guidance, doesn't mention FGM, then clearly it is not a requirement, because in the Quran it says, we, God, have left out nothing from this book. This comes from Surah An'am, chapter 6, verse 38. Now when Allah says that He has left out nothing from the book, how can we add to the book, so to speak? add to whatever He wants. Because He knows, He made us, He knows what we need. He knows what we want. He knows everything. He knows our thoughts. So why are we relying on a custom that comes from Pharaoh's time? Why are we implementing that custom from Pharaoh's day, which has nothing to do with Islam? Why are we just blindly following the past? Why don't we stick to our faith? And our faith is the Quran, and the Quran says it's not a requirement. And for us then to say somehow, well, the Hadith says so, and so forth, we are only shortchanging our girls. I don't want to shortchange any Muslim girl.
What is the difference between the Quran and the Hadith?
Well, the difference between the Quran and the Hadith is quite immense. Muslims believe the Quran is the actual word of God given to Muhammad by the angel Gabriel. By the time of his death in the year 632, the Quran as we know it today existed. It's never been changed and altered in any way whatsoever. Muslims believe this is the constitution of their faith. Muslims seek all guidance from it. Whatever is not in the book is not a requirement. The Hadith, on the other hand, are supposed to be the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad. These were oral traditions. They were collected for over 10 generations. They only compiled between 250 and 300 years after his death. So we have a big difference between the Quran and the Hadith. The Quran is the infallible text. It is God-given, while the Hadith is a man-made collection of human opinions supposedly traced to the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad. And the two are not the same. The Quran and the Hadith are not co-equal. They are not parallel. One is superior and one is inferior. The Quran is the divine word. The Hadith is man-made words.
How can a Muslim tell if a Hadith is authentic and if they should follow it?
Very simple. All Hadith must be subjected to a twin litmus test. The first test to decide whether Hadith is authentic and reliable. The first test, does this Hadith conflict or concur with the Quran? Does it agree or violate with the Quran? If it contradicts the Quran, clearly this couldn't be a reliable and authentic Hadith, because the Prophet Muhammad wouldn't deliberately override the Quranic commandments. That's the first test. We must pass that test first. Second test, immediate test, simultaneous test. The second test, every single Hadith must be subjected to pass the test of common sense. In other words, the Prophet Muhammad, like all the great teachers, Jesus, Moses, Abraham, all these great people of God, would never say foolish, stupid, silly things. You and I might, but they don't. So the Hadith must pass the twin test, must not defy the Quran, and must not contradict logic and common sense.
If the Quran does not talk about FGM, but the Hadith does, should people follow the Hadith?
In the Hadith, we only have about 2, possibly 3 Hadiths that talks about the subject of FGM. The Hadith that talks about FGM is a weak Hadith. It's a mursal Hadith. It is defective. It's even regarded so by the compiler, Abu Dawood, who died in the year 888 of the Common Era. He says that this Hadith he only included because he felt he wanted to show a comprehensive picture. But it's only the one Hadith. He's the only compiler that mentions this, and it is a weak and defective Hadith called a mursal Hadith. Moreover, it is an ahad Hadith as opposed to a mutawatir Hadith. An ahad Hadith relies only on one narrator. A mutawatir Hadith, many people are confirming the same things. So if FGM was a big practice, was a normal custom in the time of the Prophet Muhammad, this would have been, there would be many Hadiths about this. The Quran is very clear. You know, we are a kamil insan. We are the perfect human being, according to the deliberate divine design. What right do we have to change the design of God?
As soon as he has said this, I had so many questions to ask. Does my mum know that FGM is against Islam? Why would she want to harm my body? I decided to go on the internet and search people who are actually trying to stop this, and one name kept on appearing and reappearing: Hannah Buckley. That's who we're going to meet at the Foreign Office. What is your job?
I am the first ever FGM coordinator. My job works across 4 different government departments, which is quite unusual. So I work across the Department of Health, the Department for Children, Schools and Families, the Home Office and the Foreign Office, where we are today. My job is to create a coordinated and comprehensive response to female genital mutilation nationally, so across the whole UK and from central government.
What have you done so far?
So far, well, I started the job in November, and for the first couple of months I went round and I spent some time talking to stakeholders, people who work on female genital mutilation, so Sarah McCulloch, who you've met, the police, Forward, and I talked to them about what they thought central government needed to be doing more of. And from those discussions I developed an action plan which I'm going to be rolling out in 2010. The first thing that I'm doing is a publicity campaign. We're going to be launching a poster, national poster, a leaflet and also a website.
What will you do next?
After this publicity campaign's been launched, I'm going to be writing guidelines for professionals. So if a teacher, for example, comes into contact with someone they think is going to have FGM done, they can go online and have a look at what they should do in those cases. Also, I'm going to be developing training materials which are going to be, again, used for professionals. I'm also going to be looking at some community engagement work and potentially appointing ambassadors, so key people within different communities in the UK who can speak out on FGM. I'm also going to be looking at whether we need a national helpline. On the website that I'm developing, there's going to be an email address that people can email if they've got any questions or concerns about FGM. And if we get a lot of questions coming to that email address, then we might think that we need to have a national helpline as well. So I'm going to be considering that. So I've got a few things planned.
We have interviewed a doctor. It's clear they do not know what to do because they don't have any power. Do you have the power to stop this?
I'd like to think I had the power to stop FGM. That would be a brilliant superpower to have. I don't think anybody in the world has the power on their own. And I think really if we're going to make a difference to tackling FGM, then it has to be something that lots of people do together. And one of the things I'm doing in my job is I'm bringing together lots of people from the police, from Forward, from the medical profession to take this work forward. And I'm hoping that combined we can really make a difference.
It was a good day out, and I like going with a group of other girls and seeing the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. The ladies we met were a bit strange, but they meant well. They had posh voices and hairbands. One of them told us a funny story about pigeon poo in the courtyard, and we got to see grand rooms you're not normally allowed in if you're just a member of the public. We sat on chairs she said were hundreds of years old. The one called Hannah was quite young, maybe 20s. I liked the way she talked to us, and her plans were good. But even though it was a good day, and even if the plans she talks about are good, and she just tried to make stuff happen, and even if maybe one day she will, it's too late already, for most of the girls on the bus. I don't mean she was leading us on, it's just the way she said it. It sounded impossible. Hannah wanted to make it sound as if there was hope, and there isn't. There's no hope. Monday. Miss brought in her mother. She wanted to talk to us. She wanted to do something about it.
My own experience is I was campaigning against female genital mutilation for the last 10 years, and I myself went through FGM. It's really very harmful, and it's a lot of pain, and there is a lot of flashback you get in after that. I think FGM is baseless, and it's horrible, and it's against it's child abuse as well, and it's against women's rights. When I had my first baby, because I was closeted, and I went through a lot of pain to have my first daughter, And after that, I was thinking why they doing to the woman that. And I went to my grandmom's, I went to my mom, and I asked her, and they can't give me a good reason why they do it. All they saying was, it was the culture, and we have to do it, and we want to protect our girls, we want to do what's good for them. My mom, when she was doing, she don't have any education, she can't read the Quran, she can't get any information anywhere, so she has to follow her mom, her grandmom, the great-grandmom. I went to a lot of Arabic countries, and I was talking to other women, and I was asking about them, are you been circumcised, are you been through FGM? And then they told me no, like Saudi Arabia, they don't do it, and all Kuwait, they don't do it. A lot of Arabic countries, all Arab countries, they don't do it. I went to Imam, and I asked about what the Quran, because as like me, I believe it was religious obligation, but it's not. After I found out from the Imams, from the Quran, from the Hadiths, it's nothing to do with the religion. And I can say to you, as a young girl, and you have to understand your rights, and you have to be very confident, and you got self-esteem, and you have to know what you're doing. Female genital mutilation is nothing to do with your life. They damaging your sexuality, they damaging your feminism, they damaging everything. But that is what they used to believe. If the woman is circumcised, they believe she is a complete woman, but it's not. You're not losing anything if you are uncircumcised girl. And I think as a young girls now, you have to understand that. And if your grandmom, it is the grandmom who controls the female in the house. If your grandmom says, oh, my granddaughter has to be circumcised, you have to stand for yourself and say, no, Ayeyo, you're not doing to me nothing to do with my life. I can access to marriage, and I can be a good woman, and I won't be prostitute, and I won't do something I don't like. We've got a good culture to follow, but when it comes to certain things like female genital mutilation, we have to back up and say, no, we're not doing, because I'm not getting anything from it. If you don't want something, you can explain to your mom, to your dad, to your relatives. I'm really proud of you and really glad you're talking about issues bothering you and to know more about the culture and the female genital mutilation, and that's good. Be strong, be confident, be your own person. You still got your respect, you still who you are, but whatever you need to do and you think it is the right way to do, you can get a help.
After London and the meeting with the mother, I was sitting thinking about the trip and all that had happened. It's hard to keep a secret like that. I was just staring out of the window, and suddenly, Yusuf asked me what was up.
Why are you crying? Is someone doing something bad at school?
So he sat looking at me crying, as if I was some alien thing.
Yasmin, tell me, what's wrong?
He said.
If you don't tell me, I'll ask Mum, and I'll ask Hannah.
And then I cried even more, and he sat down and said,
What do you mean you haven't told Hannah? You tell her everything. I'm your big brother and you'll do what I say. I'm telling you, you have to tell me, especially when Dad's away.
Well, he asked for it.
What are you talking about? What, you mean Hannah has had it done? It's stupid. Why would anyone do something like that? Who says it's a good idea? Who thinks men want it? I'm a man. I can't think of any reason why.
You're not a man, I said. You're a boy.
I'm a man. I'm going to talk to my mates about this.
I would advise her not to do it, and I will tell her more information about it, and I'll bring some religion background into it.
It doesn't have to happen. It's forced upon certain people, even though Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said you don't have to do it. It isn't. He didn't do it to his own doors, so why should we do it?
I would advise her not to go through this process, but I'll tell her the background and where it came from and the tradition behind this.
I told him never to tell our dad.
Well, he's coming home in 2 days. I think we should tell him, but I won't tell him without your permission.
I can't believe Yusuf said that. I told him the teacher had arranged for a policeman to come and talk to us. He looked worried. It's just a talk, I said. If a girl is suspected of being taken for FGM, what would happen when they return?
Basically, it would be subject of the child abuse procedures. What happens is, you've given me a scenario. Let's say then that a friend at school, say, rings social services and said, look, I have to tell you that, you know, my friend has been taken abroad. I think she's been taken abroad for FGM. She's coming back next week. If we had a call like that, the first thing we would do is to try and see if there's anything we could do to intervene overseas to stop it from happening. It would depend, obviously, which country she had been taken to, but that would be the first thing we would do. We'd try and make contact with that country, find out where she's gone, maybe make direct contact if it's possible through the parents, try and persuade them that it's not, tell them that, you know, this is a crime that's been organised. The way that it works for child abuse procedures is information comes in that a child is at risk of significant harm, that's the term, and this would come under that category. What happens is that we share information with health, with a paediatrician, with social services, and they share information with us. So we should have like all the most recent, the fullest information for us that we all know. And what we do then is we discuss it and we agree who's going to do what. In this situation, I believe that what we would do is something like meet the family when they came back in. I don't know if it's parents taken the child away or whoever, but we'd look to meet the child when she's brought back into the country. We would look to interview her to find out what has happened, and we'd look to gain evidence. And we, at the same time, we'd be looking at, are there other sisters who could be at risk? You know, are there other things that we need to do? Obviously, if she's been subject to the procedure, we would make sure she had the right sort of medical help. And we would look at arresting whoever arranged it, if we could prove it, and prosecuting them.
How long would the parents be in prison?
Well, that would depend on all sorts of circumstances, on how it came to happen. There'd be issues put in mitigation, which would reduce the amount of the sentence, and there'd be aggravating factors, which would make the sentence bigger. The maximum they could get would be 14 years in prison.
But they aren't doing it out of harm, but out of love. So how do you prosecute people who thought it was right?
Whatever their motivation is, they've harmed their child significantly. And A, they need to recognise that, and B, it sends a message, you know. If we could prosecute somebody, it would send a message and say, look, the authorities are serious about stopping this, they really are serious. This is unlawful in most of the countries where it's most prevalent. You know, there are countries where it's unlawful and 80% of girls are subject to it. So I think there's a lot of a feeling that, yes, the authorities say it's against the law, but they're not going to do anything about it. The number of times that we can say we've intervened and we've stopped a girl being subjected to it, there are so few. So there is an argument, is there not, for saying, you know, we need to step it up.
What are the child's rights if parents want them to have FGM? What?
Well, you know, the child has an absolute right not to be subject to FGM. I mean, it's a breach of their human rights. And it's a crime in this country to actually be involved in any way in organising or cutting a child in this way. So the child has an absolute right not to have it, not to be subject to FGM, or to be taken out of the country for it to be done to them.
Is it legal for someone to check at the airport if a child has had FGM? And if so, is it an invasion of privacy?
That's a very good question. You know, obviously we're very aware that we really have failed to really get into this. You know, we've not been prosecuting people. We cannot honestly say that we've managed to stop this happening on a big scale. It's very difficult to know how successful we've been. But this is always this big argument. I mean, it has been suggested, for example, that all young girls who are, if you like, within the target cultures and believed to be at risk should be examined to see if they've been subject to the procedure. So that, if you like, there's a baseline, so that if there's ever later a suspicion that they have been, they can be examined, and you can say, well, on this date we examined her and she had not been, and now we've examined her and she has been, therefore it's happened between these dates. But is that a reasonable thing to do? I mean, is it right to just, you know, give some what is a very intimate physical examination, just so you can check that nothing has happened. I think at the moment that would be viewed as not being in their best interests. Maybe that will change, I don't know, but at the moment I think the general view would be that would not be a proportionate thing to do, to examine all young girls from a certain culture to check that they haven't been. If we're talking about the scenario that you mentioned a minute ago, where you're talking about a girl who has come back to the country, you've got specific information she has been subject to the procedure, then we would certainly be looking to have a medical examination to check whether she has or she has not. Our approach would be different, obviously, depending on the age of the girl. But if she was an age to make her own decision and she said, no, you are not examining me, we would not force her.
Am I supposed to feel like I'm not safe? The policeman said they had not prosecuted anyone, and that means no one's really trying. They don't try, and we pay the consequences. Am I really safe in this place? I don't want them to hurt Mother. I know she loves me, but it's wrong. And she should know. Is it wrong of me not to tell anyone that it's happened to my sister? Am I immoral? I don't understand anything. Dad's coming home tomorrow. He's been away 2 weeks. I miss him when he's gone. He's the one who always calls me Gebertedi. Diary, I wish someone would hear my call and help me. Dear Diary, today I finally plucked up the courage to tell my mother how I really feel about this holiday I'm going to. But my mum is very stubborn. She won't listen to any of the research that I have gathered and refuses to cancel the trip or the cut-in. I feel as though she doesn't love me anymore, and I was yelling at her, saying I wished I could run away so that my own mum couldn't drag me there and get me cut and stitched up, saying someone please kidnap me. It would be way better than to get it done. Saying I wished I was never born. I didn't know my dad was there, and he heard. I hadn't seen him. I didn't know he'd got home already. He was there, and he heard it all. It seems he is against me going abroad. I was very upset because my mum and dad started arguing right in front of me, and I couldn't stand it. My mum was throwing shoes and books at my dad. My dad got a cut above his eye from a shoe heel, and he was bleeding, and he was yelling, saying that getting the cutting done on a girl is unethical. It is against Islam. The Prophet never did it to his children or his wife, and he didn't want any child of his to have it done. And I thought about Hannah, and I wondered if he knew about her. They argued like they hate each other. I wish I was never born. I couldn't stand their shouting anymore. Stop, I said. They stopped. My dad said he was going to stay with a friend and left the house, and Mum stopped shouting. That was as bad as the arguing. What if my dad didn't come back? Mum, I said, we had an imam to see us, and a trip to London, and a policeman came. A policeman, she said. Mum listened at last. I told her about the trip to London. I told her about what the policeman said, about how you could get arrested at the airport, how you could go to prison. I said I'd told Yusuf, and he thought it was stupid. I told her the imam said it was not in the Quran. I told her. Suddenly, she started to cry. I'm not going, I said. I'm only 13, but today it was like I was the grown-up. Why? Written by a group of girls from Bristol. Yusuf was played by a boy from Bristol, and Yasmin by me, Nicola Miles Wilden. Thank you to all those who contributed to the making of this programme.